Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. I know a lot of you guys are new to phone flipping, always looking at routes to potentially get into it. Maybe you don't have enough money, you don't really know how much money it really takes, because I know a lot of you have the conception that phone flipping takes hundreds and thousands of dollars to kind of get into, because obviously we're dealing with expensive phones sometimes. Like, I mean, the iPhone XS Max is going for like $1,200 or something like that, so they can get pretty expensive. But today I made this video for you guys, especially those that are looking to get into phone flipping, maybe not have been able to take that next step. So hopefully this will be able to be something where you can kind of refer back to and give you a little confidence to get into this industry. Because if you are not already in phone flipping, let me tell you, there's a lot of competition coming in the next year, especially with all these videos coming out. And I know a lot more people are trying to promote this industry. So if you get into it now, I can promise you're going to make a ton of money. So definitely take advantage while you can. And with that said, today I'm going to be kind of walking you guys through how much money does it really take to get into phone flipping. I'm going to be giving you my honest opinion. So with that said, let's get right into it. So there really is kind of two paths I'm going to kind of lay out for you guys. The main and probably the best path that I'm going to kind of explain to you guys is being able to kind of set aside a budget for phone flipping. And this is probably going to be about 99.9% of you. But again, I want to apply to pretty much everybody in every kind of situation financially. So the first one would be you should be coming into phone flipping with some sort of budget. And so I'll talk about what that budget should probably be here later in the video. But that's kind of the first one, where you have a budget and you kind of grow that budget. And the second one is for anybody that's kind of desperate for money, might have a little bit of money here and there, but they're pretty much going to be putting all their marbles into this kind of going into it kind of full time as a beginner. And I know some of you, very few of you, might have to do that at this situation, because that's totally fine. I mean, I'm here to help you make money, so I want to again help you as well. So in regards to having a budget, again, the budget really doesn't matter. So what I mean by that is the cost to really kind of be successful at phone flipping, all it starts with is your first phone. And to be able to get in the industry, all it really takes is the cost of your first phone. So I know a lot of you have this conception that phone flipping is one of those things where you need to spend $1,200 on an XS Max or $500 on an iPhone X. Totally not true. And that, for some of you, that might be the first phone you buy, but for most of you, for me, if I were in your position, like not having ever flipped a phone before, watching these YouTube videos, I would want me to be able to tell you guys that you should be probably flipping something around the $100 to $200 range. I mean, you could buy iPhone 6s for $100 or less. You can buy iPhone 6 Pluses for around $100 to $150. Flip those anywhere between $150 to $250, and there you just made some profit. And so again, all it really takes to be able to be successful in this industry is your first phone. And obviously I'm not going to be here and say you're going to be successful at this, but I mean, it's really not that hard. I'm definitely not the smartest tool in the shed, but the phone flipping industry is pretty standard. There's a lot of ways you can get scammed. There's a lot of things you can learn, but they're all avoidable. I mean, most of those scams I talk about on pretty much every single one of my videos at some point on this channel. Or else, if you guys want to expedite that process, kind of get the A to Z blueprint of everything you want to know about phone flipping, again, I do have a course, so I'm going to link that the first link down below. I know a lot of you are at that point where you want to get into it, so I definitely recommend that. If you do have the funds, I'm running a $197 special right now, so you get that and the Facebook ads course for free. So definitely hop in that if you guys are new. You really could be more or less aggressive. It's honestly up to you, and I'm not here to tell you how to run your business, but in my recommendation, I'd be a little bit less aggressive by those older phones. But if you maybe have a couple $100 or $1,000 for your budget, go ahead and potentially buy an iPhone X, because in my experience, there is an advantage to it. I know a lot of people might say 6s and 6S Pluses sell really well, and that potentially is a very, it could be a fact, but it really depends on your area. And to be honest, I see a lot of success flippings like 7 Pluses, 8 Pluses, X's, and pretty much anything past a 7 Plus I can sell pretty quickly locally. But you do have to take into account where you're selling that. I mean, some of the phones like the 6s might take you a little bit longer just because they're the older model. So obviously That might mean that people like aren't as interested in it, but again, there is the demographic in general America that people can't afford a lot of things, so they might have to buy those kinds of phones. So there's an up and down kind of portion of that. And so if you're following this strategy where you have a budget and you buy a phone, whether it's less aggressive or more aggressive, what you can actually do to become successful in the industry and how you kind of build up that capital over time is literally, for the beginning, just reinvest those profits. If you set aside a budget, you shouldn't be using that budget and in your head is something where you're going to be spending taking all of that out to potentially buy a vacation right away or spend it on food right away. You should have a budget, and kind of in your head, kind of how I would think about it is just be like, that's an investment. It's going to be there for a little while. I'm not going to take anything out of it, and then kind of move on from there to the point where once it gets to be a large enough principal, then you could start taking percentages out of that. And I'll link a video up above where I kind of talk about that in another video. But again, you just have to buy a phone. Let's say it's a 6, sell it for 200, go buy a 6 Plus with that money, go sell it for whatever, buy a new phone, and you can then generally start to buy newer phones that way. Or you can keep buying cheaper phones and then just see more of the profits sitting in the account while the main principle of what you had put in for the budget is just continuously being used and used. But again, you really have to take into account if you're sitting on that money. And that's kind of what I called the illiquid period. So that is something that will affect you if you want to be successful in this industry or not, is with being able to budget your money and being able to have this kind of sort of common sense in the industry. Is like when you're buying a phone, a lot of people think it's a lot of work to buy a phone. Yeah, it is and everything, but they don't take into account what it's looking like to sell that phone. They just think once they buy that phone, they have profit. No, there's another whole 50% where you have to take and kind of get over that hurdle of being able to sell that phone at a decent profit in a quick amount of time. And so that's where I take advantage of things like Mercari, in the past eBay, which for me I don't really recommend, especially if you're a beginner. Honestly, just resell locally, but even locally it has its disadvantages because sometimes that can take a little while to sell. But if you price it a little bit under what the market value is kind of going for, that's my recommendation. I talk about it in every single video. That way you're going to have almost every single offer for full price on that phone because they recognize that you're a little bit lower than everybody else, and that phone will sell like hotcakes. And then the last thing you should kind of take into account when having a budget and trying to grow that money to become successful in phone flipping is taking into account scams. Obviously, there isn't too many scams in this industry, but the ones that will affect you, potentially things like the eBay scam and having iCloud locked phones potentially, and there's a plethora of things, and that stuff I talk all about in my course, so you guys can avoid that. But that's something you have to take into account. Something like that happens in pretty much every business you get into, so you need to account for that in the overall scheme of things. Maybe not if you invest in something like a course or you just watch other people's videos and are able to learn those scams, or you're just, for like what I did, I pretty much have been through every single scam, and I lost like a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 doing it. But you could go that route definitely, but why would you when you can take advantage of things like free videos in a course like that? But again, scams can be avoided, so you just have to look out for them. But that's something you need to take into account, because a scam, especially on eBay, maybe you're selling a $600-700 phone, it could be gone like that, and that's a lot of money, especially if you're just in the beginning. And I've seen it happen to people, and it really weeds out anybody that doesn't have the common sense to kind of take advantage of the knowledge out there and kind of apply it to their phone flipping business. Because I've seen so many people buy a phone, get scammed on the first one, get robbed or whatever. They don't take the right steps, which a lot of it is just common sense in my opinion. And then they just get scammed, they lose their money, and then they're out. And that's what happens to 90% of the people in this industry. It happens in every industry, you just have to be consistent with it. So overall, in regards to having a budget, going that route, all you need to do is know that all it takes is the value of the first phone you buy. That could be an iPhone 6 for $100, that could be an iPhone XS Max for $800. It doesn't really matter, it just depends on how aggressive you want to be. Another thing you should take into account are the potential scams when kind of managing your money, and also take into account the potential illiquid period of having that money just kind of in an online account like eBay or Mercari, waiting for that money to transfer to your account, or you're just sitting on the asset, and that being the phone, trying to resell it locally and it doesn't sell quickly. And so the second route, this is something I'm not going to talk about too long, but for those of you that are looking desperately for some way to make money, one, you're at the right place because this is probably the best thing in my opinion, but two, you need to be a little bit more careful. So it doesn't differ too much necessarily, but to be successful in this industry with a very limited kind of funds and stuff like that, One, definitely recommend hitting an older phone, maybe even the 5s or 6s or SEs or something like that for maybe under $100. Flip those, grow that money. But again, you're also going to need that money, whatever it takes to buy that first phone, plus any living expenses as well. So like when I went full time with this, obviously I built up enough capital and I was at a comfortable point. But with that said, I had to phone flipping wasn't just building up a capital. I had to continuously start to take money out of that and any profits that I was making, because I had to put that back to any sort of living expenses, and that was obviously required, right? I need a roof over my head, I need a means of transportation. So a lot of that started coming out of the phone flipping profits. So if you're in that stage, you need to account for, as in the other way, having a budget kind of route, the cost of your first phone plus whatever it takes you to live. So obviously you also need to take into account the illiquid period. I obviously recommend taking lower profits and selling that phone fast. You can continuously keep building up that cash locally. And again, with that said, you should be reselling locally. You shouldn't be hitting any of these online platforms and just trying to make that cash flow start to grow. But again, there's nothing wrong with that strategy. Even though you're going to be buying a cheaper phone, it's probably going to teach you a lot more going that route than people going the first route. So if you're at that point, I'm here to help. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm here to help you guys. So with that said, I hope you guys found today's video super valuable. I think this is something where a lot of people can take some sort of advantage out of it, whether it's a little nugget here and there. It's always good to just have that reassurance in any industry. For me too, when I get into other businesses, to have somebody that's out there, like in this case it would be me, just kind of telling you there is a route to become successful in phone flipping. It doesn't take a lot of money. It does take a little bit of time, but I've seen people grow a significant amount of money in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It just depends on how aggressively you want to attack this. To be honest, again, if you want to invest in the course, I can help you get there so much quicker than anybody else. It'll be the first link down below. So with that said, if you guys haven't liked today's video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you guys aren't part of the family yet, hit that subscription button down below. I'd appreciate that support so much. With that said, I'll catch you tomorrow in the next video.